In the heart of Pondicherry, India, a boy named Pisin Molato Patel, affectionately called Pi, found solace and adventure within the vibrant walls of his family's zoo. Picture this, a kaleidoscope of colours, a symphony of sounds, an intoxicating mix of scents that only a melting pot of exotic animals could create. Each day unfolded with the roar of lions, the mischievous chatter of monkeys, the slithering grace of snakes, and the awe-inspiring presence of the Bengal tigers. Growing up amidst such untamed beauty instilled in Pi a deep respect and fascination for the natural world. He spent his days observing, learning, and befriending the animals, absorbing their unique personalities and quirks. The zoo was his encyclopedia, and he its eager student. Pi's curiosity wasn't confined to the animal kingdom. It extended to the realm of spirituality and faith. He explored the diverse tapestry of religions that coexisted harmoniously in India. He delved into Hinduism, Christianity, and Islam, finding truth and beauty in their shared values of compassion, love, and the search for something greater than oneself. Pi's spirituality wasn't about dogma. It was a journey of self-discovery and exploration of the divine spark within him. His faith was a source of strength, a guiding light that illuminated his path and filled him with a sense of purpose. Life took an unexpected turn, steering Pi's destiny towards uncharted waters. The socio-political climate in India shifted, casting uncertainty over the Patel family and their zoo. Pi's father decided to seek a new beginning in Canada. Pi's father, the world is changing, Pi. We must adapt and seek new horizons. With a heart full of hope, Pi boarded the Japanese cargo ship, the Tsimtsum, ready to embrace the adventures that lay ahead. The Tsimtsum became Pi's temporary home, a steel ark carrying hopes and dreams across the Pacific Ocean. The initial days at sea were a whirlwind of new experiences for Pi. He explored every nook and cranny of the ship, familiarizing himself with its labyrinthine corridors and the bustling galley. The presence of the animals provided a sense of familiarity amidst the strangeness of their surroundings. He would spend hours talking to them, reassuring them, sharing stories of the new life awaiting them in Canada. As the days melted into nights, a sense of monotony settled over the voyage. Pi turned his attention to the human crew of the Tsimtsum, a motley bunch of seasoned sailors. He listened to their conversations, their tales of distant ports and their dreams of returning home. The ship's cook, a gruff but kind-hearted man, took a liking to Pi, often sharing his culinary creations and stories. Pi, in turn, regaled the cook with tales of his life in the zoo and his hopes for a new beginning in Canada. The tranquility of the voyage was shattered one fateful night. What began as a gentle rocking of the ship escalated into a tempestuous dance with the elements. The wind transformed into an angry roar, whipping the sea into a frenzy. The storm seemed to shake the Tsimtsum to its core, dissolving the ordered world of the ship into chaos. Pi clung desperately to his bunk, fear gripping his heart as the ship battled the relentless storm. How long the storm raged, Pi couldn't tell. When it finally subsided, Pi found himself adrift amidst the wreckage of the Tsimtsum. A thick fog hung low over the water, shrouding the wreckage in a ghostly veil. Disoriented and battered, Pi clung to a piece of driftwood, scanning the debris-strewn ocean. The vastness of the ocean loomed around him like a watery abyss, amplifying his solitude. Just when despair threatened to engulf him, a glimmer of hope emerged from the fog, a lifeboat bobbing gently on the surface of the water. Exhausted, Pi struggled towards the lifeboat, each pull through the water a monumental effort. Reaching the side, he clung to the gunwale, gasping for breath. Mustering his strength, he hauled himself over the side, collapsing onto the floorboards in relief. The lifeboat, a small island of salvation, swayed gently beneath him. Emergency supplies were lashed beneath the benches: oars, a first aid kit, a flare gun, tins of biscuits, and a solar still. Pi ran his hands over the rough wood, drawing a strange sense of security from its solidity. A sound jolted Pi from his grief. A zebra, its leg at an unnatural angle, limped towards the lifeboat and collapsed onto the floorboards. Before Pi could process this, another head emerged from the water. Richard Parker, the Bengal tiger from his father's zoo. Pi froze, his mind struggling to reconcile the image of the majestic predator with the fear-stricken creature clinging to the edge of the lifeboat. Richard Parker, thin and gaunt, hauled himself aboard, his movements sluggish. He collapsed onto the floor of the boat, a low growl rumbling in his chest. The lifeboat, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. The arrival of the tiger had shifted the delicate balance of survival, unleashing a primal terror. Richard Parker dragged himself towards the stern of the boat, his presence a suffocating weight. A new terror emerged, a hyena, its eyes gleaming with a feral hunger. The hyena began to circle the injured zebra, its high-pitched laughter echoing across the water. Pi, caught in the crosshairs of this primal dance of predator and prey, could only watch in fear. The violence, when it came, was swift and brutal. Pi averted his gaze, unable to stomach the carnage. Desperate to distance himself from the hyena, Pi began to rummage through the lifeboat's supplies. Amongst the oars and emergency rations, he found empty plastic containers. An idea ignited in his mind. He would build a raft, a fragile sanctuary on the open sea. Using his bare hands, he began to tear apart the life jackets, salvaging the straps and buckles, and tying pieces of driftwood together. The raft, a precarious platform of plastic containers and driftwood, bobbed alongside the lifeboat. It offered Pi a semblance of distance, a psychological barrier between himself and the predators. The hyena eyed Pi with suspicion, its low growls a constant reminder of the danger. But it was Richard Parker who commanded Pi's attention. Pi knew he couldn't outrun or outfight the tiger. His only hope lay in understanding it and learning to coexist. Fear coiled in Pi's stomach, threatening to consume him. He knew his survival depended on coexisting with Richard Parker. Pi remembered a lesson from his childhood about asserting dominance with wild animals. He began by establishing boundaries, using empty buckets and scraps of tarpaulin to create separate spaces. He spoke to Richard Parker in a firm, steady voice, letting the tiger know that he was present and in charge. Days bled into nights, marked by the relentless rhythm of the waves and the scorching gaze of the sun. Life on the lifeboat settled into a routine, a fragile dance between survival and despair. Pi's world shrank to the confines of the small vessel, his existence defined by the basic necessities of food, water, and the constant struggle to stay alive. He quickly learned that the sea, though a cruel mistress, could also be a provider. Using the lifeboat's emergency kit, he began to fish, his stomach churning with each catch as he reconciled his vegetarian upbringing with the brutal reality of his situation. He learned to stomach the raw flesh of fish, his body craving the sustenance it provided. The solar, still a godsend in their watery desert, provided a meager but life-sustaining supply of fresh water. Each drop was precious, a symbol of hope in the face of dehydration. Pi rationed their water carefully, his mind constantly calculating, planning for the days, the weeks, the unknown stretch of time that stretched before them. Establishing dominance over a Bengal tiger was a daunting task, a constant test of will and ingenuity. Pi knew that any sign of weakness, any hesitation, could be misconstrued as submission, an invitation for Richard Parker to reclaim his position at the top of the food chain. He used every tool at his disposal, his intelligence, his greatest weapon. He discovered that Richard Parker, despite his fearsome reputation, had an aversion to the shrill sound of a whistle. Pi, using a piece of bamboo salvaged from the wreckage, fashioned a makeshift whistle, its sharp blast a sound of authority that sent shivers down his own spine. He established a routine, a set of rules that governed their interactions. He would feed Richard Parker first, tossing fish onto the far end of the lifeboat, acknowledging the tiger's position as the alpha predator. He would use the whistle to assert his own dominance, blowing it sharply whenever Richard Parker encroached on his designated space. The sea, in its capricious nature, offered both challenges and rewards. Days of meager catches were punctuated by moments of unexpected bounty. One afternoon, as the sun beat down on the lifeboat, a flash of gold caught Pi's eye. A dorado, a fish of remarkable beauty, its scales shimmering like 1,000 coins, had taken his bait. The battle was fierce, a test of strength and endurance. The dorado fought with the tenacity of a creature unwilling to surrender its life. Pi, his muscles screaming in protest, his hands raw and bloodied, refused to let go. He reeled in the line inch by painstaking inch, his heart pounding with exertion and anticipation. Hauling the dorado onto the lifeboat was a victory, a tangible sign that hope was not yet lost. The fish, large enough to provide sustenance for days, was a gift, a symbol of resilience in the face of despair. Pi, his heart filled with a strange mix of gratitude and remorse, set about the grim task of preparing their meal. Survival, Pi discovered, was more than just a physical struggle. It was a battle against despair, a test of the human spirit. In his solitude amidst the vastness of the Pacific, he found himself seeking solace in the most unexpected of companions, Richard Parker. The tiger, no longer a fearsome predator but a fellow survivor, became a focal point for Pi's emotions. He talked to Richard Parker, sharing his fears, his hopes, his memories of a life that seemed a world away. The tiger, in its silence, became a sounding board, a confidant, a witness to Pi's struggle for sanity. A strange bond began to form between the boy and the beast, a connection forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal. It wasn't friendship, not in the conventional sense, but a grudging respect, an understanding that their fates were intertwined, their survival dependent on their ability to coexist in their watery prison. The days blurred into a monotonous cycle of sun, sea, and the ever-present awareness of Richard Parker. But the sea, ever capricious, had a surprise in store, a flicker of hope on the endless horizon. The smudge resolved into a distinct shape, an island, a verdant emerald jewel rising from the azure depths. Could this be real? A sanctuary after months of relentless hardship? The island welcomed them with open arms, a symphony of sights and sounds that assaulted Pi's senses after months of monotonous blue. The air hung heavy with the scent of blooming flowers and damp earth, a heady perfume that filled Pi's lungs with a sweetness he had almost forgotten. The gentle lapping of waves against the shore, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, the chirping of unseen birds. It was a chorus of life, a stark contrast to the silence of the open ocean. Vegetation lush and vibrant carpeted the island, a tapestry of emerald green, ruby red and sapphire blue. Trees, their branches heavy with exotic fruits, reached towards the sky like welcoming arms. Freshwater streams, their waters crystal clear, crisscrossed the island, their melodic gurgling a siren song to Pi's parched ears. Pi, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and disbelief, guided the lifeboat towards a small sandy cove. As soon as the bow crunched against the shore, Richard Parker, with a guttural roar that echoed through the trees, leaped from the boat and disappeared into the dense undergrowth. The island's dark secret. Days turned into nights, each one a celebration of their newfound paradise. Pi, his body regaining its strength, explored the island with the enthusiasm of a castaway. Richard Parker, his primal instincts reawakened, stalked through the undergrowth, but as the days passed, a sense of unease began to gnaw at Pi's newfound tranquility. The island, for all its beauty, seemed strangely devoid of larger animals. The only creatures Pi encountered were the meerkats, thousands upon thousands of them. One night, as Pi knelt beside a freshwater stream, he noticed something strange. The water shimmered with an eerie luminescence. The water, Pi realized with growing horror, was acidic, its inviting clarity a deadly illusion. Section 4. The Reluctant Farewell. The discovery of the island's dark secret shattered Pi's illusion of paradise. The island, he realized, was a carnivore, its beauty a facade masking a heart of darkness. The island, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison, its beauty a suffocating shroud. He had to leave, had to risk the open ocean once more, even with the knowledge that it might offer nothing but more hardship, more despair. Pi pushed the lifeboat away from the shore, severing their ties to the island that had offered both salvation and despair. The vastness of the Pacific, once a symbol of Pi's isolation and despair, now held a different significance. It was the crucible in which his spirit had been forged, but even the strongest of spirits yearn for land, for the comfort of solid ground beneath their feet. And so, as the sun rose on the 227th day, a glimmer on the horizon caught Pi's eye. It was a shape, indistinct at first, but as the light grew stronger, so did the shape, resolving into a ship. Rescued from the Pacific, Pi found himself on a Japanese freighter, confined to a small, sterile cabin. Gone was the vast ocean, the threat of Richard Parker, the struggle for survival. In their place were human voices, machinery, and the aroma of cooked food. Pi was questioned by Japanese officials, documenting the Tsimtsum's loss and his survival. Eager to share, Pi recounted the shipwreck, Richard Parker, and his journey across the Pacific. But his extraordinary tale was met with skepticism. The officials struggled to reconcile Pi's account with their rational worldview. Pi, faced with the officials' disbelief, understood their struggle. His story, a tapestry woven from the threads of reality and imagination, defied easy categorization. It challenged the boundaries of what they considered possible, pushing them to confront the limits of their own understanding of the world and its infinite capacity for wonder and terror. He offered them a second version of his tale, a stark and brutal account stripped bare of fantastical creatures and impossible scenarios. This version, grounded in the bleak reality of human cruelty and despair, resonated with the officials' expectations, offering a palatable explanation for the horrors Pi had witnessed and endured. Yet, as Pi concluded his second tale, a profound silence descended upon the room. The officials, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and a strange sense of disappointment, acknowledged the plausibility of this second, darker version. But it was Pi's first story, the one that defied logic and embraced the extraordinary, that lingered in their minds, a haunting reminder of the power of belief and the boundless capacity of the human spirit to find meaning, even in the face of unimaginable adversity. Life of Pi is more than just a survival story. It is a testament to the enduring power of storytelling. Pi's journey, both extraordinary and deeply personal, invites us to question the nature of truth and consider that reality is often a matter of perspective, a tapestry woven from our experiences and beliefs. It reminds us that incredible stories, those that defy logic, hold a deeper truth, transcending the material world. They awaken our imaginations, challenge our perceptions, and remind us that the human spirit is vast and resilient. As we close the book on Pi's adventure, we feel gratitude for his story, a tale of despair and hope, leaving us changed by the journey. As we navigate our own lives, we carry Pi's words, a reminder that even in the darkest nights, belief can guide us to our personal truths.